Are we on the air?
All right, we are live.
We are live.
Or as alive as
Here,
the thing can be.
Hello.
Should we stand up here?
Does that work better?
Yeah,
That's
there we
better.
go.
Okay,
Right
there we
side.
are. Hi, guys.
Hello, hello, hello.
Barret and Charlie.
Hello.
Good news.
I'm Barret, he's Charlie.
And this is the good news on the road. We do these programs down in Glenview, Illinois, the first Saturday of every month, and we are coming up in July with our 36th good news. So we've been doing it for 3 years.
Yeah,
Yeah, which is kind of a shocker to me.
that's right. This all started on a little bit of a lark, where we were heading out to see our friend Gary Renard at a presentation in Iowa.
Mhm.
And that's about right when we met, and we both were heading out there, so we carpooled. So we had this 5-6 hour drive each way to talk and shoot the breeze. And on the way back, we're like, I think we're supposed to do something together.
Yeah.
And
And it's still going on.
yeah, there we go. There we go. So,
Yeah, we just, in fact, we just did a healing retreat in Sedona, Arizona, mid-April, was it? Or around the 20th of April. We did a 3-day healing seminar out there, which was quite awesome. And we're gearing up now, just beginning the planning for one for next year in Florida. So that's something that's coming up down the road. And of course, we'll keep doing these good news programs. Because it is good news, There's a lot of good news coming through to us from the course. We always start our programs with the prayer on page 28. Yeah, I always want to say 7. I don't know why that is. Let's get ahead of myself. Page 28. So, you can do much on behalf of your own healing and that of others if, in a situation calling for help, you think of it this way. I am here only to be truly helpful. I am here to represent Him who sent me. I do not have to worry about what to say or what to do, because He who sent me will direct me. I am content to be wherever He wishes, knowing He goes there with me. I will be healed as I let Him teach me to heal. Thank you.
Yeah.
Want
sure.
to roll
We'll
with it?
start us off.
Okay.
So
We're probably going to both start on the same page.
yeah, well, and it's good stuff. So as you know, we always bring the chart here. This is the chart from the Foundation for A Course in Miracles that really explains what's going on, right? A lot of times as people start working with this and are trying to practice and use this in their lives, the question becomes, well, how do I do this? What's this all about? And getting to understand these metaphysics is really key, right? It's key to actually making the best use of this that we can. Because it's easy to kind of find some detours, find some dead ends, find some issues. And I always think of this, this is like a roadmap, right? So this is the roadmap that helps us to know where we are, where we're going, what's happening here. And it actually even explains our experience of being here in the physical body. So we always start out, and ultimately this is all that's true, is above this top line. These are the words heaven, knowledge, God, Christ, non-duality, right? This is the state of pure love that is what we are. It's what we've always been. We can't be anything else, right? And then basically there crept into the mind a tiny mad idea at which the Son of God remembered not to laugh, right? So we forgot to laugh at this idea. And I think that's a message from God.
She's in second place.
So this tiny mad idea came in, and what is it? It's the idea of separation, right? This is the core issue that we're always dealing with, whether it looks like we're dealing with our taxes, whether it looks like we're dealing with a mean driver on the road, whether it looks like we're dealing with a problem in our relationship of some kind. It actually always comes back to this tiny mad idea. This is the core, this is the root, this is where it all began and where it all ends. So this whole rest of the chart basically talks about our progress from this idea of separation down into a world of time and space. Right? So first of all, we sort of grab onto the idea of separation. Well, in the mind, what is there to be separate from, right? Because it's all one here. It's all in this really big metaphysical place. Well, the idea of separation makes us think that we're apart from God. So first it seems like we're the bad guy because we did this bad thing and pulled apart. But that guilt over that, which again is the deepest issue we have, the guilt over that separation. It's so intense, it's so big that we have to get rid of it, right? We have to get rid of it somehow. And how do we do that? We push it out onto God. So now God, rather than being just love and kindness and peace, is a symbol of rejection, is a symbol of separation, is a symbol of pushing us away. And this experience in the mind is so painful. It's so untenable. We can't stand it. So what do we have to do? We have to somehow get away from it. Now this leads us down this next veil of forgetfulness into an experience of form. This is our experience here in the world. This is our experience of time and space. And this experience is, again, intended to keep us away from the guilt in the mind. It's so intense, we don't want to go there. So how do we do that? Well, when the guilt starts to come up in us, we pin it on somebody else, right? I'm upset with my president. I'm upset with, again, that driver on the road. I'm upset with my body because my body isn't being nice to me. There's some issue with my body. And so now we have an enemy in some way. And that's what's down here, this idea of enemies, this idea of victimization. This is a hiding place. This is a distraction. What is it a distraction from? It's a distraction from remembering that we are a mind. It's a distraction from remembering that we can choose this light and peace and joy in the place of this experience. So that leads us ultimately back to the miracle. This is the arrow up. It leads us into our right mind, helps us to remember that we can choose love and kindness. And ultimately, that's what our goal is to keep coming back to the mind. Because if we come back to the mind again and again and again, what happens? Well, ultimately, we start to feel more peaceful. Why? Because we're not pushing this all out onto someone else anymore. One of the things about the ego strategy is it just doesn't work, right? The ego says, well, if you push it out onto them, you're going to feel better. And how many times have we tried that? And how many times have we failed, right? However many times we tried it is how many times we failed. Because it can maybe feel a little better in the short term. But in the long run, what we're doing is we're actually just holding on to the guilt. Why? Because we're not going to address it where it actually is. The guilt is actually in the mind. And so then when we come back to the mind, all of a sudden we have a chance. We have a chance to shift. We have a chance to return to our peace. We have a chance to come back into our oneness. And basically, that's the goal of the Course. Some people would say, well, how come the goal of the Course isn't heaven, right? It's not knowledge, it's not oneness. Well, because when we get back to our right mind and we stay in that place of being in our right mind, the last step is taken, right? As Jesus uses such sweet metaphors in the Course about this. God will reach down and take his last step to bring his son back into that oneness. And that's what happens, right? So all we want to do is just really watch our mind. We watch our mind again and again and again. And we realize when we've kind of grabbed onto the ego thought system and we come back into our truth. So all of this is really the setup for our topic today. Our topic today is denying the denial of truth. But I'm going to kind of turn it over to Charlie to talk about that some more. So,
Great, thank you.
yeah, you bet.
Thanks for getting us started. And yes, denying the denial of truth. So pretty much what Barret was explaining is, I'll cut this word right here, veil of forgetfulness, denial, right? Everything below the line, everything that's not heaven, we have this belief system that tells us it's going on, that it is true, right? And all of this is the denial of this, right? So the entire ego thought system, the entire idea of separation, the entire idea that we are not the Son of God, right, is a denial of the truth. The denial of truth is what we're charged with here as the Son of God, right? We want to deny this. So this is the concept of the atonement. This is the idea of recognizing that this is not true. And just got a little quote here. So miracles are merely the translation of denial into truth, right? So miracle is the translation of denial. This is the denial into truth. We translate this denial into truth by recognizing atonement, by recognizing this is not true, that we are in perfect oneness, always were, always will be. If to love oneself is to heal oneself, and again, this is healing of the thinking, healing of the mind, right? Those who are sick do not love themselves. Therefore, they are asking for the love that would heal them, but which they are denying to themselves. So we're asking down in this, we keep trying to fix this. We keep trying to put the pieces of the puzzle together in the illusion to heal ourselves, to make ourselves feel better, to get everything running the way it should be, right? And talking about projecting the guilt on another, that's a big part of it, right? Well, it's not my fault, it's your fault. I can project the guilt on you, that's gonna make me feel better. I'm healing myself, right? Except it doesn't work, right? The only healing that can really take place is changing the mind and recognizing that this is not true, this is reality, right? Deny the denial of truth. So the task of the miracle, I'm sorry, I'm back up a sentence. If they knew the truth about themselves, they could not be sick, right? So again, sicking is the errant thinking, is the wrong-minded thinking. Health is right-minded thinking, right? The other side of the chart, thinking with Holy Spirit. So if they knew the truth about themselves, they could not be sick. The task of the miracle worker thus becomes to deny the denial of truth. The sick must heal themselves, for the truth is in them, yet having obscured it, the light in another mind must shine into theirs, because that light is theirs. So what I'm taking out of this is the light of the other mind, right, is the mind of God, the mind of the Holy Spirit. That's the other mind that we all have inside of us. We bought into this system our entire lives, that this stuff going on with the body and everything that, all our situations, all the people in our lives, all of this stuff is going on is all about you and me, right? It's all about separation. There's somebody else and there's me. There's some other thing happening to me, right? And I want to start to understand that the healing that needs to take place is a recognition that this isn't true, right? And I have one teacher to go to, just one. I have Holy Spirit to go to. I can't, through all my wrong-minded thinking, my insane thinking, fix what's going on here. I'm just going to get more and more of the same. We all know that in our lives, right? How many, you can just, the stories will pop in your mind in a nanosecond, how we've done this, right? If I marry this person, everything's going to be fine. If I buy that house, everything's going to be fine, right? If the country does this, if the political party does that, if the international monetary situation, we can go on and on and on and on. It tells all these stories about this, how things are going to get fixed only if, but, right? But except for this, right? I was thinking of those words, Jampolowski's words, the catchwords that we use to constantly tell ourselves that the truth isn't real, but is one of them. Those words that we use to verify, to confirm the separation. I think this, but, but you're wrong, right? But I think this, right? Separation. So again, what we want to do is start to realize that we do have this other coach inside of us, this other teacher, right? The Course is telling us this over and over again. Go to Holy Spirit. And how do you do that? You take these situations, you take these occurrences with people, you take these opportunities. We were talking at lunch today about opportunities coming up, and they just keep coming. It can be another situation, another story we've told ourselves, another person that shows up in our life, another occurrence of something in the news, right? All these different occurrences, situations. Okay, use of the word situation Jesus has throughout the Course, right? When a situation arises, right? When you find yourself in this situation, all those are this, all of those are these beliefs that we have, these stories coming up, right? The mirror that's shining back on us. When these things appear, we have an opportunity, as we were talking today, where Helen and Bill started out by saying, there's got to be another way. Yes, there is another way. There's another way to see it. We have the memory of God inside of us, right? We can go back to truth by asking that guide, asking that teacher for help. We can get back to the truth of it, right? And the truth is that there is no separation. This has never taken place. There's no separation in heaven. There's no separation in oneness. There's no separation in knowledge. These are all just creations that we've made down here. We've made error real. We've made mistakes real when we believe they're real, instead of recognizing them as simply, it's just an error. It's okay. It's not a sin. Look over here. Error is not real. It's just a silly dream. Gentle laughter and abundance. We get an opportunity with all these occasions that come up, these people that show up in our lives, to laugh at ourselves when we find ourselves over in here. There I go again. Look, I've chosen that again. I've made another error. That's all it was, a simple mistake. And, in the very next nanosecond, I can choose differently. I can be back with this other teacher. This has never left me, this memory. Never, ever left me. So this denial of truth, right? So what I'm really saying is that all of us, not just course students, but all of us in this lifetime, all of this in illusion, all of us in this illusion, have this opportunity to recognize that there's another way, which is the denial, right? The denial of what we've been telling ourselves. This is the denial of truth. We can recognize there's another way, which is the denial of the denial of truth. And that's where this expression comes up in the course, right? Denial of the denial of truth. Yeah.
So, it really reflects a teaching I remember hearing Ken Wapnick talk about, which is that this is not a course so much on the affirmative, right? Mm-hmm. This is not a course, it's not called a course in God. It's not called a course in heaven. It's not called a course in knowledge. It's not a course in Christ. It's a course in miracles, right? Because that's what the miracle is. The miracle is denying this denial, right? So if this veil here is the denial of our mind, what we're doing as we come back into our right mind is we're remembering that that's not true. So you could say that this is not a course so much in yes as it's a course in not no, right? We say no to the no. We deny the denial. This is what we're doing over and over again. So this is also what makes the course a very unique spiritual thought system. A lot of us have been in other spiritual ideas and other spiritual communities. They're very much about the positive, right? You manifest the positive. You attract, the law of attraction, these sorts of things that really are about bringing something good to you. Well, you can still use those ideas, but you start to see them all from a different perspective. You realize that when I'm clearing the mirror, right, if we think of our mind as like a mirror that has all kinds of smudges and dirt on it, right, this work is in cleaning that mirror. And why do we want to clean the mirror? Because the more clean the mirror is, the more clear it is, the more the light reflects through the mirror, right? We see the light shining through. That's actually what we're doing. I mean, I sometimes think of the Course in Miracles like spiritual 409, just spray it on the mirror so you can get some more of those smudges out of there. And that's really good news, right? Because it actually reminds me of an experience I had when I was doing some healing work. I was kind of going on an inner journey. And on this inner journey, I had this image of a big, dark, ugly wall in front of me. And the sense I got, the thought I had initially was I need to get to the other side of the wall. Like my piece is on the other side of the wall. So in this healing space, all of a sudden I noticed a light coming out of the wall off to my left. So in my mind's eye, I kind of moved over to this spot, and I was kind of excited to see, what this light was shining through, and maybe it was a way to get to what was on the other side of the wall. But when I actually got right in front of it, what I saw was that space was a mirror, and that the light that was shining through was my own light, just being reflected back to me. And this is the metaphor for all of us, right? The light is what we are. All of the fear, all of the challenge, all the stuff that we go through in our lives is just the dirt, right? It's just the dirt on the mirror that we want to just keep working on clearing and letting go. So I wanted to share this part from chapter 20 in the text on page 432, where he's talking about some of this dirt, right? He's talking about what it means to live in this world of time and space. And talking about the laws that we have here, right? This world has all kinds of laws. We have the law of gravity. We've got the law of not speeding down the highway. We've got all these different kinds of laws here. And here's what Jesus says about that. He says, Your insane laws were made to guarantee that you would make mistakes and give them power over you by accepting their due. Right? So what does that mean? Well, if we make a mistake, what is the result that we expect here in the world? We expect to be punished, right? It's awful, right? This world is a world of retribution, a world where things often go wrong. And who's to blame? I mean, it's got to be me. I went 85 on the highway, officer. I mean, just that feeling of being pulled over, which I think pretty much everyone has had. Oh my God, your heart just goes crazy. You're sure, oh, something really bad's going to happen. I remember the last time I was pulled over. I pull over, and the cop comes up to the window, right? And he says to me, "Do you know why I pulled you over?" The famous cop line. And I said to him, "Well, I'm guessing I was going a little fast." I didn't really know. I thought I was speeding. He's like, "No, your blinkers out. I just wanted to make sure you knew, so you go get that taken care of." I was like, oh. I could just feel the tension leaving once I heard what he had to say. But that's kind of an interesting energy, right? To notice the tension, to notice the fear. Okay, oh my God, what's going to happen? How much is this ticket going to be, or whatever it is, And then to realize it was really nothing. In a sense, that's kind of what we're all doing, right? We're realizing all of the tickets, all of the cops in our lives, all of the getting pulled overs are not what we think they are. They're not actually anything. It's not even a blinker being out, right? Because there's no blinker out in heaven. There's no light that's not shining up here. So he says a little bit more, what could this be but madness, right? Believing in this thought system is crazy. It's really crazy. Charlie's been talking about being crazy a lot recently in these presentations, and it's such a good point, because Jesus called us insane. Here it is, madness. The next sentence. And is it this that you would see within your Savior from insanity? What is he saying? He's saying that the people that we interact here in this world, they are our saviors from insanity. Why? Because if we can see the truth within them, we can know the truth within ourselves. So one of my big examples lately is Donald Trump, right? He's not my favorite guy. But as Charlie's very fond of reminding me, when the election was going on, one time we'd done one of these and we were sitting down. And I said to Charlie, I love that guy. And I really meant it genuinely in that moment. I meant it genuinely in that moment because I was seeing that if I didn't love Donald Trump, I didn't love myself. Well, this is kind of tough, right? Because we all have, whether it's Donald Trump or someone else, we've all got someone in our life that we're like, yeah, I can love most people. I can even love myself most of the time. But that person, oh my God, no. I will not go there. They are not really holy. They are not really innocent. They are not really one with me in heaven. And there we go. What do we have? We have the separation. I'm separate from them. I'm good, they're bad. Sometimes we play it the other way around. I'm bad, they're good. That's another ego special. It doesn't matter to the ego as long as there's a bad guy. So, yeah. All right. So I think I'm going to hand it back over, but it's just good stuff here.
Yeah, it is. So we can kind of sort of this insanity. This is a good place to lead off from, this insanity, this insane thinking that we do. Jesus does tell us throughout the course, look at the insane way in your thinking. You act insanely. You believe insane thoughts. He tells us over and over, sprinkled throughout the course, this concept of insanity. And really what he's saying is that, the concept of heaven is oneness. And yet we live in a world that we've created because of this tiny man idea of duality, right? The atonement is the opportunity for us to say to ourselves, the recognition of the atonement and the miracle itself is this moment where we have this bit of clarity that says, no, this is not true, right? This story of duality that I've got going on is not true. Barret was just pointing out a number, right? All these different stories are not true. It's that moment of clarity where we switch from this thinking to this one that is the miracle. It's called A Course in Miracles, right? The miracle is the actual thought process where we say, no, wait, there's oneness. There's not duality, right? And the atonement is the recognition then that all of this is false, this is true, this is not true, right? That's the actual atonement. So we have an opportunity, and the Course talks about the atonement and this concept of this all being true as this magnificent defense system. So he says early in chapter 2, right, section 2, Roman numeral 2, the atonement as defense. So you can do anything I asked. I've asked you to perform miracles, right, which is going from here to here, this recognition that we are going to be with Holy Spirit. I've asked you to perform miracles and have made it clear that miracles are natural, corrective, healing, and universal. So they're natural because this is the natural way to think. This is the denial of truth. So it's not true, right? This is the beginning of the recognition of truth. This is the beginning, as Barret was touching on earlier, coming back this path to that final metaphorical step where Jesus, lifts us above this veil for the one last time, right? So that's the miracle. It's natural to be over in this side, right? They're corrective because we're correcting what? We're correcting this belief system. We're correcting the way we think. They're healing because now we're starting to talk about love and oneness rather than duality and separation, right? And fear. So it's healing, and it's universal because all of us can do it. There is no exclusion here. Every single one of us that thinks he's down here is not down here. Every single one of us has the opportunity to understand the belief system that we're buying into is not true. Every single one of us has the opportunity to work with Holy Spirit. The memory of God is in all of us. It doesn't mean my brother's excluded. I had my own brother excluded from this when I first started studying the Course, right? We talked about forgiveness of your brother, and I had a brother that had in my mind, had conceived a situation that I didn't like very much, right? So I had to hold him in guilt. I had to keep him in guilt down here. So as I'm starting to study the Course, forgive your brother, forgive your brother, forgive your brother, I'm going, yeah, all of them except that one. I want to hold him down here, I want to keep him down here for a while. So finally that realization came along for me that if I keep one brother in guilt, I'm there with him. I cannot do this and keep somebody separate. I can't do this work and keep somebody separate. I can't have somebody on a cross and expect all the rest of us to go to heaven. It's not working that way. We're all going home together. There's only one of us here thinking that we're all separate, right? So just a little further here. When you are afraid of anything, which my story of my brother is what that was, you are acknowledging its power to hurt you. I had this story about my brother that was hurting me. I was in pain about it. Remember that where your heart is, there is your treasure also. You believe in what you value. If you are afraid, you are valuing wrongly. I love this use of the word treasure, right? I wanted to treasure this story. This I valued. It satisfied my ego's thought system. It made my brother guilty, this story. It kept me in separation, but I wasn't seeing it that way at first. I just wanted him to be guilty. So, if you believe in what you believe in what you value, if you were afraid, you were valuing wrongly. What was I afraid of in my story? I wasn't going to get mine. I wasn't getting my stuff, right? So that was my fear. Your understanding will then inevitably value wrongly, and by endowing all thoughts with equal power, will inevitably destroy peace. And I was in no peace. You could mention my brother's name, show a picture, all I had to do was think of him, and my peace was gone immediately. That is why the Bible speaks of the peace of God which passeth understanding. This peace is totally incapable of being shaken by errors of any kind, errors in thinking, right? This peace cannot be destroyed by this goofy, tiny, mad idea. Barret was just touching on, there's a great section in here, and I got it marked, but I can't find it right now, where Jesus is talking about seeing things through a fog, right? We have a fog, I've got this fog set up in between me and my brother, right? The truth of the matter is the light is in the fog. It's always been there, always will be. All we really need to do is clear it away, right? How do I clear it away? You know, that's the trick for us. Because if I'm going to value this, if I'm going to value this fog and value this darkness, value this story, you know, make it my treasure, then the fog is just going to stay there. I'm not going to see things any differently. But I can go to Holy Spirit, and it's almost in a sense of like, you know, blowing the fog away. There was never any fog there anyway. The light was always there. The light's in my brother. The light's in me, right? I chose not to see it. I valued a different story. I didn't value the story of oneness. I didn't value what the Course tells us to. We were, again, touched on at lunch, you know, the third lesson of the Holy Spirit. Third lesson of the Holy Spirit. Always be vigilant for God and his kingdom, right? I wasn't valuing that at all, right? I just wanted to value the story of separation. So we have this opportunity now that we're starting to study this Course to understand that the best defense we have against this thought system is the recognition that it's not real. That's truly the best defense we have. When we catch ourselves in these stories, to realize it's just that. It's just a fog that we created. You were just touching on the mirror, covering the mirror up with dirt, you know. Barrett's other great story is the whiteboard, right? We take a whiteboard and we cover it with black marker, right? And then, you know, but it doesn't make the whiteboard not a whiteboard. It's still a whiteboard. We can still go up to the whiteboard and go like this and see the light behind it. It's the same thing with the fog. It's the same thing with this thinking that I have. I can always go to the light and see it directly. I don't need to go into the fog. I don't need to be in the fog. I can recognize the light. I can recognize the oneness. I can recognize heaven. I can recognize this in my brother, you know, and be in peace, as opposed to this story of duality and fear and trepidation of some sort, you know.
So speaking of trepidation, I'm going to share a couple jokes. I know Charlie's often very feels a little hesitant about my jokes. So what do you get when you cross an elephant and a rhino? Elephino. All right. I do tend to like these puns. So, what does the man in the moon do when his hair gets too long? He clips it. I got a couple more. I'll share them as we go forward here. All right. So here we are. Right. We're talking about coming into our truth. Right. And we're talking about it by looking at what is false. One of the things I mentioned recently in a talk with Charlie is about how much Jesus really spends a lot of time talking about the ego. And he goes into it in really big depth and a lot of detail. Why would he do that when what we're trying to get to is our love? Well, because he knows that this is where we are, right? He's giving us as clear of a map as he can so that we're going to be able to navigate as smoothly as possible. We all know having a better map is a better thing, right? I remember when the maps on the iPhone were just kind of getting going. I was using them occasionally to get directions somewhere. Well, they didn't always work, right? They didn't always take you where you wanted to go. I actually remember a number of years ago when GPS was still kind of new, we got one for a rental car. It was a family trip. We were in Hawaii, and we plug in this pineapple plantation, right? That's where we wanted to go. And we're following it. You have arrived. We look around. we're next to a military base. There's nothing else around there. Like, we are not in the right place. We're not in the right place. What is it? They missed the pineapples. That's right. They're going to shoot the pineapples out of a cannon. But what does that say? It says you want to have the best map possible, because it's going to help you get where you want to go. And that's what the Course is. The Course is the best map possible that I know of, that I found in the different spirituality that I've studied. We were talking a little bit on the drive up here. I was just sharing about my journey. And I've studied other spiritual paths, and I've found healing in them, right? I've found help in these paths. They've helped me let go of old fears. But each of them felt like they had a part of the message, a part of what would get me home. And it wasn't until I was reading the course, and actually when I read Gary Renard's first book, I was like, this is it. This is it for me. I know that this is what I'm going to be working with the rest of this lifetime. Which again, hopefully is my last, I don't know, right? We were saying that too. We hope for enlightenment. We hope that we clear our mirror completely, because that's what enlightenment is, right? Enlightenment just means you've cleared all the spots off your mirror. There's nothing left to obscure the light of God from shining through you. All you become is a reflection of that light in your life. So it sounds like a pretty good thing to aim for, right? And the experience of it is amazing too, right? Again, I'm speaking secondhand knowledge here, because again, in Gary's books, they talk about that. And they talk about how at the end of Persa's life, she had the last 10 years of her life, 11 years of her life in the state of being in the real world. She of all of the ego. And all she had left was love. And we're all going to come to that point, whether it's in this incarnation or some future incarnation. In truth, that doesn't even really matter. Why? Because time is an illusion too. So what does that mean? It means that we're already here already. Even when our life feels tough, even when President Trump threatens to bomb someone else, whatever it is, we're still here. We're still here. There's nothing that can take us away from there. Even our experience that we're not there doesn't take us away from there. I like the description in here where Jesus talks about it as though this were a rerun that's already done, that we're reviewing mentally what has already gone by. Right? So we're reviewing mentally this whole idea of our life, thinking it's the truth, right? It feels pretty real. This body seems to be what I am. But we're starting to get more and more that it's not. And what can start to happen is all of a sudden our body feels a little less affected by the world. Maybe it's not doing so great. Maybe it's not always happy. But we find like there's more and more of a remove from what the body's experience is. So this is an effect of the cumulative work of this idea. Now, a lot of people will say, does that mean you're trying to heal the body if your body has a problem? Well, no, not really. We're always trying to heal the mind. But when the mind is healed, the result is an experience of peace. And this is demonstrated so clearly in the talk about the crucifixion, right? Obviously, that looks pretty rough to have your body nailed to a cross like that. But when there is no more attachment to the ego and the mind, there is no suffering. And that's what Jesus says, that the crucifixion was a teaching of love. He couldn't be hurt because he didn't have any more suffering in his mind. Even when this gruesome and grisly scene is playing out to his body, he wasn't attached to it anymore. He knew it wasn't him. And we can do that. Again, he says he's not asking for martyrs, but for teachers, right? So he says you just are asked to use these ideas on much less extreme temptations in your life. So we just use it on whatever it is. I've got a little sore in my mouth. Okay, well, I just use it on that. When there's a little pain right there, what do I think? Okay, well, let's walk through the forgiveness steps. First step, this is just a dream I'm experiencing, and I'm making up the dream. So what does that mean? It means that the pain that I sometimes feel on that little sore, it's not there, right? It's in the mind. So when I go back, then all of a sudden I see, well, if the pain is in the mind, then all of a sudden I can maybe do something with it. And what do I do with it there? I say, well, there is no cause for pain. Why? Because there's no tiny mad idea. There's no thought of separation, which is the root of all pain. If there is no cause, there is no effect, right? So then I'm like, well, there's not really any pain. It's in the mind, and there's not really any pain. The last step is always to say, Holy Spirit, show me your vision. How can I experience this with your perspective of love? And just going through those 3 steps with everything. Sometimes the pain will be gone. Sometimes it won't be. But maybe the suffering around the pain is less. Maybe the anxiety around the pain is less. These things are all cumulative. So what he's really doing is he's encouraging us to remember that this is not our truth and that we want to be here in our right mind, which is the path to knowing our truth. He talks about it here in chapter 23 a little bit. He says, mistake not truce for peace, nor compromise for the escape from conflict. So he's saying, don't be okay with the temporary, issues that seem okay here in this world. That's not where you really want to go. He says, to be released from conflict means that it is over. The door is open. You have left the battleground. You have not lingered there in cowering hope that it will not return because the guns are stilled an instant. And the fear that haunts the place of death is not apparent. Well, what's the place of death? It's this world of time and space, right? And it can be really grim and gruesome. I mean, some of these things that he talks about really bring up that fear in us. But he's helping us to see that we don't want to try to find a happier way of being here. We want to find a release from pain. And again, this is tricky because I think almost anyone who picks up the course, at first you think, well, I just want to be happier here, right? I want to have a good life. I want to have things work out here. And okay, well, if that's your goal, that's okay. But what he's saying here is basically you're trying to find stability on an earthquake-prone ground, right? Okay, I found the spot for a bit. Oh, next earthquake. Okay, all right, let's stand over here. Oh my God, no, that's not safe either. Let's try this one. Oh my God. And eventually what we start to get is this is just not going to do it, right? What do we do? We got to get off this earthquake planet that we live on, where there's always instability. And again, our body may still be on the planet, but what happens is our perspective is more and more here in our place of peace. And that's where we want to be. Then all of a sudden, when the earthquake is shifting, we're like, okay, I'm just going to step over here. Okay. I'm not attached to what's happening. And so I can just, okay, well, maybe it's a little unstable, but I'm not worried. I'm not afraid. You can just kind of do the next thing, do the next thing, do the next thing. So, yeah. So we want to mistake not truce for peace. And that's how we do that. So.
Great lead into this. I'm in a section here, the Journey Back, chapter 8. And so Barret was just talking about Jesus and his ending here in this illusion, the crucifixion. But there's a beautiful section in here, the gift of freedom, and the second paragraph begins with this. I am come as a light into a world that does deny itself everything. This is everything. And this is where we deny everything, right? So getting back to the denial of truth. We're denying ourselves everything. We're denying ourselves completion, oneness, all the joy, all the love. It does this simply by disassociating itself from everything, right? We've denied this. This is us. This is our story. We've disassociated ourselves from the truth. It is therefore an illusion of isolation down here. It is therefore an illusion of isolation maintained by fear of the same loneliness that is its illusion, right? So the loneliness being that I am one. I'm not with my Father. I'm separate. I'm alone, right? I'm not with my Father any longer. I said that I am with you always, even unto the end of the world. That is why I am the light of the world. If I am with you in the loneliness, if I am with you in the loneliness of the world, the loneliness is gone. So we are with our Father. We are with Christ. We are with the Son of God. We are with Jesus in this illusion. Then this is no longer true. We've accepted the atonement. We've accepted this is an illusion if I'm with my Father. That is why I'm the light of the world. If I am with you in the loneliness of the world, the loneliness is gone. You cannot maintain the illusion of loneliness if you are not alone. We're talking about being alone at lunchtime, right? You cannot maintain the illusion of loneliness if you are not alone. My purpose then, again, this is Jesus speaking, my purpose then is still to overcome the world. But this is the great part. I love this. I do not attack it. But my light must dispel it because of what it is. Light does not attack darkness, but it does shine it away. If my light goes with you everywhere, which it does, right? We are always with that light. It's always a part of us. You shine it away with me. The light becomes ours. And you cannot abide in darkness any more than darkness can abide. Wherever you go, the remembrance of me is a remembrance of yourself and of him who sent me. This is getting us back to the denial of truth. If we are denying that this story is, what it is, we're denying that this is real. This is the denial of truth, and we're going to want to deny this, right? But I can do this. The light becomes ours. You cannot abide in darkness any more than darkness can abide. The remembrance of me is a remembrance of yourself and of him who sent me to you. And we cannot do this of our own. We must do this with our brother. I can't tell myself a story of duality and be in that understanding oneness. I can't be walking and holding Jesus' hand if I've got my brother crucified. Right? You were in darkness, and God's will was done completely by any part of the sonship. And this is Jesus again talking, right? So when this was done, it was perfectly accomplished by all, right? When one brother did it, Jesus being our elder brother. When this was done, it was perfectly accomplished by all. So where Barret was touching on earlier, this recognition that, I just lost my train of thought there, what you've been talking about. Was done. Oh, it was accomplished by all. That there's just one of us here doing this, and that's recognition. There's really just one Son of God. How else could it be perfectly accomplished? My mission was simply to unite the will of the sonship with the will of the Father, right? And being aware of the Father's will myself. This is the awareness I came to give you, and your problem in accepting it is the problem of this world. Again, I'm denying truth. Jesus is telling us, look, this is reality. I want you to understand this. And you never left here, right? And your denial of this is what's keeping you here. If you accept the fact that I am with you, you are denying the world and accepting God. If you will accept the fact that I am with you, you are denying the world and accepting God. Denying the denial of truth. Here we are again. Denying the denial of truth. This is the denial of truth, and we want to deny it. This is why healing, right, is a collaborative venture. I can tell you what to do, but you must collaborate by believing that I know what you should do. Only then will your mind choose to follow me. The decision to unite must be unequivocal. And again, it gets us back to this concept of, always be vigilant for God and his kingdom. Situation after situation, wave after wave after wave coming in our life. Little waves, big waves, doesn't matter what size they are. Every one of those waves is an opportunity to look for a spiritual answer. We can go to this one. We can go to this illusion. We can go to this fear. We can go to this story of separation. Or I can ask this teacher to help me see it in oneness. Help me have a spiritual understanding of what this is about. The metaphysical understanding of it. Let me see this clearly. When I want to hold my brother in guilt, what I really want to do is catch myself doing that and ask for that clarity, ask for that understanding, ask for that help in seeing it differently. If I keep buying into the same thought process, right, I'm going to get the same result. If I go to the other teacher and ask for a different way to think, a different way to see. And again, this entire course is about changing the way we think. It's about changing this belief system, right? Denying the denial of truth. Right? That's what this thought system is about. It's a denial of truth. We want to deny it. And how do I do that? I want to hold the hand of my teacher. I want to recognize the oneness with my teacher. Recognize the teacher is in all of us, right? The oneness is in all of us. That light is in all of us. I can't hold my brother in the darkness and be clear and understanding about the light.
So one of the things we wanted to do was a little different today, since we're talking about the denial of truth, right? What is the denial of truth but a sort of a mask, right? It's a mask that we wear over what is real. So we actually have a little activity for everyone today. Would you hand these out?
Okay. You ready? You got the other half?
Yeah, I got this. So we're all going to make a mask.
Want to start here?
Sure.
Oh, you're gonna just.
Well, yeah, I'm going to get this all out. And we've got some crayons and colored pencils. So we can pass them around too if you want to share. Or yeah, stuff like that. Yeah, so we're just going to take, I don't know, 5 minutes or so, and everyone can kind of make whatever mask feels right. You know, is this the mask that's kind and happy? Is this the mask that is angry? Is this the mask that feels good? Is this the mask that feels challenged? So this is all about kind of like letting yourself tune in to what's there, and letting yourself be a little bit like a kid, right? Because when we think about innocence, right? Who has that innocence? Well, it's the child within. Right? We think of the metaphors that Jesus gives us. We're all the Son of God. We're all that child. So while we kind of do this exercise, I'll just play a little music here in the background.
Eyes, or do we draw the eyes?
You can, if you want to create your own eyes, if you want to,
Make a hole.
make a hole, you can, or if not, that's okay. I didn't bring scissors or anything, so you might have to kind of do whatever works if you want to go that direction.
What is the purpose of this?
It's really just to kind of focus in on the mask that we create in our life. So what is the mask that you wear when you go through your life? What do you hold in front of who you truly are that keeps your light from shining? So it's just to kind of give it a representation. Yeah. Sure.
Into his presence would I enter now. Into his presence would I enter now. This is a day of silence and of trust. It is a special time of promise in your calendar of days. It is a time heaven has set apart to shine upon and cast a timeless light upon this day, when echoes of eternity are heard. This day is holy, for it ushers in a new experience, a different kind of feeling and awareness. You have spent long days and nights in celebrating death. Today, you will learn to feel the joy of life. Into his presence would I enter now. This is another crucial turning point in the curriculum. We add a new dimension now, a fresh experience that sheds a light on all that we have learned already and prepares us for what we have yet to learn. It brings us to the door where learning ceases, and we catch a glimpse of what lies past the highest reaches it can possibly attain. It leaves us there an instant, and we go beyond it, sure of our direction and our only goal. Into his presence would I enter now. Today it will be given you to feel a touch of heaven, though you will return to passive learning. Yet you have come far enough along the way to alter time sufficiently to rise above its laws and walk into eternity a while. This you will learn to do increasingly as every lesson, faithfully rehearsed, brings you more swiftly to this holy place and leaves you, for a moment, to your true self. Into his presence would I enter now. He will direct your practicing today. For what you ask for now is what he wills. And having joined your will with his this day, what you are asking must be given you. Into his presence would I enter now. Nothing is needed but today's idea to light your mind and let it rest in still anticipation and in quiet joy, wherein you quickly leave the world behind. Into his presence would I enter now. From this day forth, your ministry takes on a genuine devotion and a glow that travels from your fingertips to those you touch and blesses those you look upon. A vision reaches everyone you meet and everyone you think of or who thinks of you. For your experience today will so transform your mind that it becomes the touchstone for the holy thoughts of God. Into his presence would I enter now. Your body will be sanctified today. Its only purpose being now to bring the vision of what you experience this day to light the world. We cannot give experience like this directly, yet it leaves a vision in our eyes which we can offer everyone, that he may come the sooner to the same experience in which the world is quietly forgot and heaven is remembered for a while. Into his presence would I enter now. As this experience increases and all goals but this become of little worth, the world to which you will return becomes a little closer to the end of time, a little more like heaven in its ways, a little nearer its deliverance. And you, who bring it light, will come to see the light more sure, the vision more distinct. The time will come when you will not return in the same form in which you now appear, for you will have no need of it. Yet now, it has a purpose and will serve it well.
You can see most people are kind of winding down, so
Into
feel
his
free to keep
would I
going.
enter now.
Anything else kind of comes to mind while we're talking? This is an ongoing project that you can keep doing. So, yeah. But again, the idea of this, the idea of looking at this, again, this is just kind of my mask that I created. It has some tears. It has a little bit of fire that represents anger. It's got one side of the mouth that's smiling and one that's frowning. So these are some of the masks that I wear, right? These are some of the emotions that I wear that keep me away from the truth. Now, one of the paradoxes, I think, of working with the Course is we don't necessarily want to hide these feelings that we're going through. We don't want to pretend we're not having them, but we do want to recognize them. We do want to see them and perhaps allow them to come through while we're holding Jesus' hand, as Charlie was saying. We want to let Jesus be with us while we move through them so that we can see that they're not really there. We can see that when I wear this mask, it's not who I really want to be. It's not the true experience of coming into my right mind and staying there. So sometimes the mask we wear might look actually really nice, right? It might just be a smiley face. I'm doing fine. I'm always okay. But on a deeper level, maybe we're covering over other issues. Maybe we're covering over other pains. So one of the things that the Course helps us to do is it helps us to recognize these dynamics. A lot of times we just do them sort of, automatically. We go through life with this sort of idea of who we are, and we just always carry it because we have grown up that way, or we've always thought that's who we needed to be. And one of the things we get as we come more and more into that, when we have less and less dirt on our mirror, then the light just comes through who we are in a way that we don't need to put on a show. We don't, whether we're conscious of the fact that we're putting on a show or not, we just don't have to go there anymore. We can just come from our sense of truth and grace. So, yeah. Any sharings about kind of this exercise? Any thoughts anyone wants to bring forward, or experiences that they had?
I do for a second.
Yeah.
So, so this is what Barret was talking about. So this is the angry one. This is, and I've kind of got this color on here for the spewing of, it's like the tongue, it's the tongue depressor, that's the tongue, that really angry persona that I can present. But the truth is not that, the truth is really the other side. The truth is the recognition that this is not real, that the joy that Jesus is talking about in the Course in Miracles is simply a matter of choice, right? I can choose to be this way. I can choose to be this way, right? I can get real stuck here, like I was talking about earlier, real stuck in this story of illusions, all the situations I create. But it's real easy to get stuck here. In fact, this tongue can just jab into the dirt. There it is. But the truth of the matter is, this is really the truth. I just found this beautiful spot here. So a big part of for me anyway, this clarity of understanding about the Course is really this understanding. And Jesus, it's the foundation stone of this entire thing. It's really the conversation about forgiveness. And what is it I need to forgive? Well, when I told you the story of my brother, right, it wasn't that I needed to forgive my brother for the situation that I'd created, right, making him guilty. What I needed to forgive was my way of thinking about my brother. That's what I needed to forgive. I needed to understand it's my thinking that had him crucified. It's my thinking that made him guilty. There was nothing that he actually did, I manifested that myself. Let's have a situation where I can be, that ugly mask, right? So, but I just happened to open to this while we're doing the sketches here. So forgiveness is the key to happiness, right? So from going from this to this is about forgiveness, because I want to forgive myself whatever story I've got going here. I want to forgive myself my illusions here, right? I want to forgive myself the situation I've created. And forgiveness is the key to happiness. So here is the answer to your search for peace. This is in lesson 121. Here is the key to meaning in a world that seems to make no sense. Right down here, right? Here is the way to safety. Here are all questions answered. The unforgiving mind, which is down here, right? The unforgiving mind is torn with doubt, confused about itself and all it sees, afraid and angry, weak and blustering, afraid to go ahead, afraid to stay, afraid to waken, or to go to sleep, afraid of every sound, yet more afraid of stillness, terrified of darkness, yet more terrified at the approach of light. What can the unforgiving mind perceive but its damnation? What can it behold except the proof that all its sins are real? That's what I get here in the illusion, right? The unforgiving mind sees no mistakes but only sins. It looks upon the world, the unforgiving mind looks upon the world with sightless eyes. The unforgiving mind is in despair, without the prospect of a future which can offer anything but more despair. Isn't that what we get here? Everything we try does not bring us peace. There's nothing we can do to bring peace here. We cannot bring light to the darkness. Yet it regards its judgment of the world as irreversible and does not see it as condemned itself to this despair. It thinks it cannot change, for what it sees bears witness that its judgment is correct. Yeah, isn't that the story down here? This is, what I see here is true because I see it, right? That's the story we're telling ourselves. It does not ask because it thinks it knows. It does not question, certain it is right. Forgiveness is acquired. It is not inherent in the mind, which cannot sin. As sin is an idea you taught yourself in this world, forgiveness must be learned by you as well, but from a teacher other than yourself. I need to go to my other teacher. The ego teacher that I've been listening to my entire life has given me nothing but this, and there's no possibility of parole. I'm condemned here, right? Forgiveness must be learned by you as well, but from a teacher other than yourself, who represents the other self, capital S, the other self in you. Through him, you learn how to forgive the self you think you made and let it disappear. And as you teach salvation, you will learn. Yet all your teaching and your learning will not be of you, but of the teacher who was given you to show the way to you. So this is another idea in this concept of the denial of truth, right? I've told myself, right, as the Son of God has told himself, that this is not real. I'm denying this is truth. I'm denying it's real. I want to deny that. And I can only do that when I forgive the stories that I've told myself. I've got to forgive the teachings that my ego has taught me here. And the light that's going to shine this clarity, give me this clarity, is coming from the other teacher. And we have an opportunity in the recognition of every single brother, right? Seeing in every single brother this same opportunity. Nobody's excluded from this. It's not just Charlie that this is happening to, right? This is the opportunity the Son of God has. It's not about Charlie. It's not about the body. It's the opportunity the Son of God has to awaken from this nightmare that we've created, awaken from this dream, and recognize that it is just that. It's a dream. It's not real. This is the true reality. This has all just been a nightmare. So, when I find myself, as we all do, in those moments of anger, those moments of judgment, those moments of, crucifying somebody, making somebody wrong, those are the lessons for me. Those are when I want to grab onto those things in the sense that I want to see it. I want to see that I'm doing this and forgive myself for making that choice. It's because it was just a choice. I chose to see my brother in guilt, right? He's not guilty. I chose to see him that way. And that's what I want to forgive, the choosing. It all gets back to this, right? This decision maker, this observer, the dreamer. I observe it. I see I've done it. I want to choose differently. I want to choose to be this way. I want to choose the healing, the forgiveness, the happy dream. I want to choose Jesus as my teacher. All these things Ken did such an incredible job with this chart when you think about it. This is really what I want to choose. And I do this by going to this teacher. I've probably said it here before. We've been up here a number of times before, but I probably said it before. You don't walk into algebra class at the start of the year and take the final, right? We have to go through these lessons over and over and over again. We have to do the homework. What is the homework? The homework is the practice of this forgiveness over and over and over again. So I don't get to 2 + 2 = 5, right? I get to 2 + 2 = 4 over and over and over. Make the right choice. I learn my lessons over and over and over again. It doesn't mean we don't slip up. We do. We do it all the time. We make these mistakes all the time. The correction that is the awakening. I used to talk about it being, I think someplace in the Course, Jesus talks about waking up gently from the dream. You don't go into the baby's room and scream, "Get up!" As loud as you can. The baby's going to start squawking and crying and carrying on. No, you go in with a very gentle touch, a very soft, loving, stroke for the baby and say, just gently wake them up. And that's what Jesus is doing with us. He's not taking us and shaking us and, making us fearful about the awakening. He wants us to see, really learn this, really understand this. Always be vigilant for God and his kingdom. Do this over and over and over again. The next wave comes in, do it again. The next wave comes in, do it again. Little soft surf, do it. Big tsunami, do it. It's all the same. No hierarchy and illusions. Every story is the same. You know, I can either be here, right? I can have my story going on here, or I can see that I've chosen that, you know, and ask to see it differently. I don't have to fix anything with that. You know, the wonderful lessons in the course about you need to do nothing. You know, I need to do nothing except change this, right? Change the way I'm thinking. Help, you know, ask the other teacher. You know, as Jesus says, fire, you know, you've been badly taught, he tells us, right? We've been badly taught. So let's get a different teacher.
And that's what we're here for, right? It's just learning this again and again and again.
Slowly.
Everyone who's been here has been to another one of these good news, right? We're coming back. Why? Because we know we want to go deeper. We know we want to clean that next smudge on the mirror. We know that when we do that, we feel better, right? Because those smudges of guilt and sin and shame, they don't feel good. It doesn't feel good to feel guilty or shameful or in pain. Like no one really wants that consciously. What we're starting to see is that some part of us has been still clinging to it. And that's what we need to become aware of. As Jesus says here in the workbook in lesson 139, I will accept atonement for myself. It says, we have a mission here. We did not come to reinforce the madness that we once believed in. Let us not forget the goal that we accepted. It is more than just our happiness alone we came to gain. What we accept as what we are proclaims what everyone must be, along with us. So, right, we're doing this all together. We're not on our own. That's the ego's idea. You know, when we look at like the core of what capitalism is, right? This is one versus another versus another. Everyone is going to be motivated by their own self-interest, right? Well, does it work? I guess sort of for some of the people, right? Does it really work for everyone thoroughly? No, because it's all about one versus another. It's about kill or be killed. It's like survive the rat race. This is the energy of that mindset. And what are we finding? Well, a better thing is you know, things that are more communal, things that support the community as a whole. These are reflections of coming more and more into a right mind. One of the things that the Course says is that we're not really trying to fix the world, right? When we try to fix the world, we're focusing on the place that isn't helpful. But as we fix the mind, these things can sometimes show up in the world. I mean, as long as we don't put our hope in it, as long as we don't feel like that's where our happiness lies, the more that humanity as a whole is staying in a place of the right mind, the more our whole experience of the world is going to reflect that. Okay, so it's a process, though. It's a process. I mean, we're pretty rooted in this mindset, and it's painful, right? When we really look at what this is saying, it hurts. And what's Jesus saying? You know, stop touching the hot stove, right? You're like, no, I want to touch the hot stove again. No. Jesus is like, no, you probably feel better if you don't touch the hot stove. Oh, I did it again. You know, and he's just like, you know, he's going to let us do what we do as often as we want. Because why? Because he knows the most important thing that we have is the power of choice, power of the mind to choose. And he knows eventually we're going to get tired of touching that hot stove, and we're going to stop. And his whole role in this is just to help us see what we're doing. You know, open your eyes a little bit, because when you just walk around like this, you're gonna hurt yourself. You know, with your eyes closed. Yeah. I don't want to bump into that. I don't want to touch that hot thing. I don't want to stick the fork in the electric socket again. You know, put my hair on edge. All these things we do that sort of shock us and hurt us and are not nice. We start to realize, no, what I really want is I want happiness. I want kindness. I want joy. I want peace. And we just come back to that again and again. We notice the mask that we're wearing, and we're saying, no, this doesn't really make me happy. Maybe I can set this down. And then we notice we're holding it up again. And then we just set it down, right? So this is a habit, right? Everything that we're talking about here is something we practice and we get better at. So we just keep practicing, keep practicing. One of the things I remember Ken said is after a while, this world gets kind of boring, right? Because it's just the same thing over and over again. We're just coming from our wrong mind to our right mind again and again and again and again. And then we just watch how it still hooks us. Okay, I've been studying this for a year, studied this for 10 years, studying this for 20 years, whatever. And I'm still getting hooked the next time Trump tweets something out, right? I'm like, oh God, when is this gonna end? When are people gonna stand up? Right? All these thoughts that the ego says, okay, if the outer is fixed, then I'm gonna be okay. And really getting that's not the case. There's an interesting story about, I think his name was Epictetus. He was a slave back in Greece, again, a couple thousand years ago. And he was sort of became a teacher of these kind of ideas about really just accepting and being fully in the moment. And so, but earlier in his life when he was a slave, at one point, the owner of him was twisting his arm. And he very calmly, very peacefully said to this man, he said, if you keep twisting my arm, it will break. And the man kept twisting his arm, and his arm broke. But his attitude, his kind of perspective was calmness throughout this whole thing. And it sort of evokes this idea again of Jesus on the cross, right? That there's a place we can be where we are so clear in our attachment, in our real home at one with God, that whatever the world is throwing at us doesn't take us out of that. It doesn't lead us astray. You know, we talk about this whole journey as really like the journey of the prodigal son, right? So when we went into the far country, this world is the far country, right? This world is the place where we think we'd be happier if we could, feed on the pods that the swine were fed, because we have so little. And the return back to our home, the return back to our Father is the journey that we're all on now. We're starting to get, maybe that's where I want to go. Maybe that's where my happiness still lies. And we're saying, that is what I want. That's where I'm going to go. And it's just a practice that we do again and again and again. So we do like to open it up to any questions or comments.
Can we have a joke?
You want a joke before the comments? Okay.
That was a question.
All right. The answer is yes. All right. What do we have here? Okay. What do you get when you put a candle in a suit of armor? A nightlight. Nature abhors a vacuum, but not as much as a cat does.
Right.
So are there any questions, any comments about anything so far? Anyone wants to share? We'll just keep on going too if there's not. But if there's anything that comes up as we go, feel free to just kind of raise your hand and we'll go into that too. But yeah. Did you have something on the tip of your tongue?
Sort of.
Yeah.
Talking to a young lady at work, one of my coworkers, we were just talking about reality and everything. She's really a nice young lady, really positive and stuff. So, what is reality? What is it? Well, I guess reality is the truth. What do you mean? Well, truth is love. Forgiveness. How can that ever be contradicted? Forgiveness. Yeah. If you're going to hold a grudge against your brother or sister, you're going to feel terrible. Eventually,
It's true.
It'll be eaten away at you. And once you do forgive yourself for that feeling, for whatever indiscretion you think she did or he did, realize once you forgive it, it's not true. That's kind of a cool or something.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
There is only one truth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It never changes, doesn't waver.
Yeah.
Changeless, eternal.
We forget and I'm not saying, I'm a saint or nothing, I go through the cursing if the driver cuts me off or rides my rear end.
Sure.
And I think about it for a second. Okay, let it go.
Yeah.
Back off.
Well, and this is all a remembrance, right?
Yeah.
So, like you said, the truth is true. Nothing else is true. Nothing else is real. And where we are, we're in this state of confusion, like Charlie was saying earlier. Like it's very foggy down here, right? And when we're reacting, when we're in that place where we're at the driver, upset at the other person, where are we? We're just in a wrong mind. And that's where we think we are. Our mind is here. So this is just the outer reflection of what's happening on the mental level.
What I like now is the longer I'm into the course, I recognize it and see it for what it is.
Mm.
It goes away.
Yeah. Yeah. In a way, what we're doing here is we're realizing how the mind works, and this is a little bit like seeing through a magician's trick. Right, I remember I was watching a YouTube video of a magician's trick. I was like, wow, that is amazing. I have no idea how he does that. Well, on YouTube, once you watch a video, then all of a sudden there's 10 more you can watch. And one of the next ones was, here's how we did it. And I watched that one, and I was like, oh, that's not that big of a deal. I mean, once you know how it works, it's like, okay, yeah, I can understand that. It might take a little practice to pull it off, but it's understandable. And in a sense, what Jesus is doing is he's pulling back the veil on the magician's trick, right? The ego is like the Wizard of Oz. Yeah. He's sitting behind the curtain, pressing the buttons, making us all scared, right? Oh, I am the Wizard of Oz. You're just a little guy sitting over there. It's not what we think it is. And we're getting the hang of it. We're starting, right? Like you said, once you realize that you were angry at that driver, you're like, well, wait, what do I want here? Maybe I can choose something else. And all of a sudden you made that switch. You made that switch into your right mind. And again, that's what we keep doing. Because we see that there's no real trick here. I remember I had a friend who was a big fan of David Copperfield. And so what did he do? He like videotaped the magic specials on TV so he could watch them again and again and try to see if he could figure out what was going on. And one of David's tricks was he had a pearl in his hand. He went like that and it was gone. So what did he do? He watched the video, really slow motion, like frame by frame. And what did he see? He saw that the pearl was on a little string that was invisible. And that when he went like this, the pearl swung around to the back of his hand. And you couldn't see it, once his hand was open the second time, because he had mastered that little, misdirection, right? The ego is always misdirecting us. What does the ego say? Oh, well, once Trump's gone, you'll be happy. What does the ego say? Once I get the job I want, once my bank account reaches a certain number, I'll be happy. These are all the things that the ego says, but that's the misdirection, right? This is telling us to come back to where the peace really is. And we just get better and better. One of the things that's a little surprising about this is how dedicated we are to the ego, right? Because, everyone here in the room basically gets this, right? Well, why do we keep doing it? Right? Why do we do it again the next time the driver is cutting us off in traffic?
I went home today, I'll probably do it.
Yeah, it's just because we're
so
so invested in it. Yeah. Yeah, this idea of being a separate self seems so important to us that to let it go seems like the worst thing in the world. And then we acknowledge that. We acknowledge that over and over, and that helps us to come back and make the decision a little more quickly next time they come by. That even happened on our drive here. We were driving and taking the exit. This guy decides to cut in last minute. There was a little tension, but I was like, I probably would have been a lot more upset about that in the past. And I was just kind of like, okay, whatever. The guy wants to get in. So, just to notice that progress is helpful too, because it helps us to know we're on the right track. It gives us the motivation to do this work the next time the thing comes up, whatever it is. And then we just get stronger and stronger and better and better.
Yeah. I like the other thing too that you brought up, Mark, is that what you were really describing was being the observer, right? So you see yourself doing it. So there's that section in the course above the battleground. And it's really what's going on for us, isn't it? We see, all of a sudden, we catch ourselves in this battleground. But rather than choose to stay in it, which is a choice we can do and often do, right? I mean, the guy can cut me off and I can choose to keep swearing at him. Or I can be above the battleground. I can recognize that I can be the observer of it and see my reaction to it and choose differently. You know, I can always, I said the other day, I always throw the boots back on and jump back into the battle if I want, you know. But again, that's a choice, you know. There's choosing going on here. This is the decision maker. He's making a choice between going this way or coming back up this way. That's the blessing of this thing. Once we start to understand that there is another way to go, we're not stuck in this routine over and over and over again. Manifest this insanity, manifest this insanity, manifest this insanity. You know, we now have another choice. We have another way to go. And I just love that, you know, the way you put that is really what it is. It's being the observer. It's seeing how we do it. It's watching how we think. You know, it gets back to this whole thing and how we think. You know, and it's so obvious because I'm never comfortable in this. When I'm thinking this way, it never feels good. It really doesn't. You know, now that I know the difference. Used to be vindictiveness felt good, right? Projecting guilt felt good. You know. Now I realize, no, I get no peace out of projecting guilt, being vindictive, or, you know, any of those things. You know, my wife doesn't have to be wrong. You know, I don't have peace in making her wrong. I get gut punched when I do it now. You know, there's an immediate sense of, ooh, ugh, that doesn't feel good. You know, and I much prefer that. You know, that recognition. You know. I might not go like in a nanosecond be at peace, but at least I have the recognition that I chose wrongly, and that I can make another choice and go back with hang out with my other teacher. Yeah.
Well, I have kind of a good one I'm working through. Do we have
Yeah,
time?
yeah, please,
Oh,
please.
yeah,
Yeah,
please.
that's what we're here for.
I had someone in my life for quite a few years who there's a family connection, so I still run into the person. And it's just long, and I'm mentally going, how can I just bring it to you guys right here? Well, the person is known for kind of making things up. And I started getting more and more uncomfortable with that and feeling anxious to the point I felt like I couldn't be with that person anymore. And there were some strings, so it's kind of like I hung in there too long, and it's getting more and more anxious because I just felt this other stuff's going to fall apart if I make a distance. So actually, I did end up making a distance because I was kind of feeling like if I hear this person's voice again, I would rather take a brick and hit my head so that I can't hear it. I was that distressed. Well, okay, so here we're seeing this denial stuff, right? And the tiny mad idea. I'm seeing the tiny mad idea in her.
Right.
So this is a recent thing. It's like, this is a problem for me that I don't know what I'm going to do with this. And so I've been doing some journaling and, you know, the course and asking the Holy Spirit. And then it's like, oh my gosh, this situation is my perfect teacher for the fact that I've made all this up. You know, I mean, isn't it interesting that when I was with this other person, I have my own, before the realization, okay, I have my own reality. We all have our own little reality. And as things were going pretty well. It's not like I was hanging off a cliff somewhere. So why am I letting this other person and what they say to me make me think I'm the crazy one? Well, I am the crazy one. I think I'm here. I until the course, and sometimes still now, I like being right. I like thinking I figured it out. I'm right, but then that has to make the other person wrong, and that's what doesn't feel good, right,
Yeah.
Charlie?
Yeah.
So I still don't know how to be with that person in the world, or if I'm going to, or how soon I'm going to. But I'm really grateful for this lesson, because how obvious has it been made?
So many great things here. No, so all right, so now you're describing being the observer again, right? Where Mark was just coming from, describing being the observer. So, and the recognition is also there that this is, you're creating this, right? I mean, that's what the Course is teaching us. But how? How am I creating this? Why would I do this to myself? That's the question, right? Because we want to affirm to ourselves. This guy right here wants to confirm and affirm that its story is real. So if I've got somebody out here that's guilty, right, then this makes me believe this. I've sent for that messenger. I've sent to get that messenger back to me to tell me, look at this story. Now I have somebody in my life. Well, I have somebody in my life who it might be the smartest man in the world. You know, so every time you're with him, I get the smartest man in the world.
Yeah.
Right. One of the things the Course taught me was I love the use of the word function throughout the Course. Your function is this, your function is that. And one of the great ones is our function here is to love, bless, and to heal. So we want to love our brother, right? Because he is us. So when I have this situation coming up, and I know it's his family member, same thing. Yeah, I'm going to be with this family member. I want to recognize that he is me. You know, I want to just love this fellow, right? And I do that by blessing our oneness. You know, I just want to bless our oneness because that's the truth, right? And the healing that takes place is the recognition that love is all there is. So if I want to go to this place where my ego is telling me the story about how guilty he is, you know, how obnoxious he is, you know, I can come up with all these great words about him.
Sure.
Yeah, I want to turn those, I want to not choose those, you know. I want to see myself choosing, and I don't want to go there. I want to go to I want to be with the other teacher. And the other great thing I think, and this is an opportunity all of us have, these scenarios, these movies we've created, where we can utilize that prayer that we start with on page 28. So when I know that I'm going to go into this situation, I could say that prayer on page 28. You know, I could just open it up and read it and recognize that I'm here to learn my lessons, right? And I can't go anywhere that I'm not protected. I can only be with my Father. I can only be with him who's going to tell me the right thing to say, show me the right thing to do, tell me how to think, right? I can choose that. I can ask for that help ahead of time as I'm going into it. So I don't need to go in and crucify it when I come through the door, you know. I can recognize that, you know, I'm here to learn. I'm here to learn my lesson. It's the only reason he's showing up, or Trump's showing up. The day we did this, we did that Saturday morning thing and went and had our sandwich, and he said, because we were talking about Trump a little in the gathering, and he goes, oh, I love Trump. My first reaction was like, like then I realized right away what he was saying. What a great teacher. He's us, you know. This relative of mine is me. It's the Son of God, you know. And yet here what do I want to do? I want to call him out. I want to make him separate. I want to make him guilty, you know, to reaffirm that this is the truth. This is the true story. This is not. I want to deny truth. And it's an opportunity every time these situations show up to catch myself denying truth, you know. And then what do I want to do but deny that denial of truth, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's also so helpful to remember that this is a blessing, as Charlie was saying, to be aware that these feelings are here. One of the challenges that a lot of us have as we're cleaning off the mirror, right? All the dirt spots, is all the dirt is almost all subconscious, right? So it's there. It might erupt, you know, when we're on the highway, when we're doing something. But these opportunities where it surfaces are actually the blessing, because it's showing us what's there. A lot of times people do this work, I don't know why I'm not peaceful. I don't know, you know. Well, this is why, right? So your relationship with this person, your family, this is showing you what's there, right? there's a workbook lesson, I am the light of God, or something like that. And what it says right after that is, it says, you believe you are the home of evil, darkness, and sin. Well, consciously, most of us don't go around thinking. But a part of our work in doing this is letting those false ideas surface so that they can be healed. And in that context, just like Trump, you know, or whoever else it is, this person in your life is showing you these dark places, these feelings of hatred, these feelings of I want to hurt myself rather than be with them. You know, these are some extreme feelings. So being with them is a part of it too. So the kind of one of the things I just want to kind of make as a little tweak to what we're talking about is before you say I don't want that and deny it, let yourself have the feeling. Let yourself feel what's going on and move through it, and then remember that it's not true. Right? So one of the things I think sometimes we can do that's not the most helpful is we can say, since all I want is happiness, any emotion I have other than happiness,
Right.
I'm just going to push it away. Right? That doesn't really bring it up so that we can bring it to the light. So there's a difference between like wallowing in an emotion and feeling the emotion fully. And we really want to let ourselves feel it as fully as it needs to be felt. When I'm doing the healing work I do with people, I sometimes describe it as like a dark flower, right? If you could imagine a dark flower that needs to grow or wants to grow and bloom and come forward, on our healing path, we want to let the flower fully bloom and grow. Otherwise, it's sort of like we're pushing it down before it can come up. Now that experience of moving through the dark emotions, the dark feelings, it's not always fun, right? If we're feeling anger, feeling hatred, for feeling self-attack, judgment, jealousy, these emotions are not, they're not pleasant. No one consciously says, I like to feel that way. But moving through them is the way to then release them. It's the way, it's almost like, sometimes when you are cleaning something that's old and dirty, you get out the 409 like we're talking about, and you start to scrub. Well, you get to the really gross spot on the mirror. And it's like, if you scrub it once or twice, you're going to get some of it off, but it's still going to be there, right? So sometimes if we're denying our emotion before it can fully come through, it's like doing a couple swipes and then saying, no, that's enough. I'm the Holy Son of God, so I'm not going to go there. But usually it's better to kind of, go as far as it would be helpful. And if it is fully ready for healing, you can go all the way through it. So does that mean you have to wipe it 3 times maybe? Does it mean 10? Does it mean sometimes 20 or 30? You've got to really work at it to get that spot off. Well, the one kind of encouragement I give as you're doing this process, don't decide how far to go on your own. This is what Holy Spirit is for. Holy Spirit will guide us. Like, how deep do I need to go? Is it okay maybe just to clear a couple layers today? Yeah, maybe that's all I'm ready for. Maybe that's as far as would be helpful. I don't need to make that decision, right? Jesus, Holy Spirit, that inner guide is here to help us to know how far to go. If something has 30 layers, maybe I'll clear 4 today. Hey, that's pretty good. That's over 10% of it gone, right? I'm that much lighter and freer. Maybe the next time I come back to it, I'll do another 10, and then I'll do another 5. And then bit by bit, what happens is that issue gets smaller and smaller. So again, to use your example of the driver, if you're doing it on the driving, then what happens? Well, one day the same person cuts you off and you're like, yeah, whatever. I hope you get where you're going a little quicker. It seems like you need to be there soon. So, you just sort of have this really relaxed and peaceful attitude about it. And the same in your relationship. The work that you're doing, allowing it, I think journaling is helpful because it really lets you feel it. It really lets you acknowledge what's going on. And then once you're feeling it, then stepping through the forgiveness, then remembering it's an illusion. That's the way that's going to be the most beneficial to using these concepts.
I like the mirror analogy. I appreciate that. I am where I love her at a distance for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes more wipes to be able to be in the same room.
Yeah. And to say one other thing about that, the goal is not necessarily to be in the same room. I mean, consciously you might think that would be the best. The goal is to find peace within yourself. And then whatever you do will come from that peace. Whether it's being in our physical presence, whether it's saying, you know, it's still okay for me not to be there. You know, again, it's always about the mind. When you have the inner peace, then the outer form will just reflect it. And that's where you're headed. So yeah, I appreciate that sharing.
Yeah, I was recently given a new bookmark from a friend of mine, and so it made me think of this when you were talking. So when you meet anyone, remember it is a holy encounter. As you see him, you will see yourself. As you treat him, you will treat yourself. As you think of him, you will think of yourself. Never forget this, for in him you will find yourself or lose yourself. You know, so when I hold my brother in separation, that's how I'm going to see myself. Hold my brother in guilt, that's how I'm going to see myself.
Oh, thank you. I really lost myself. Yeah.
Yeah.
In that. Yeah. Oh, thank you. Oh, that's wonderful.
Mm-hmm. And that prayer in 17 is on the other side, or I mean 28.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I love that. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, you're so welcome. Thank you for sharing your experience, Julie. Yeah. Any other sharings? Anything else up for anyone? It's okay.
I got a pun.
Yeah, well, all right. Let's hear it.
Well, it's not like a question thing, but I was at a local ball game in Madison with my niece the other day, and they had all these vendors, and they had a big sign saying, nacho business. And at first I was like, so that was my pun of the week.
Yeah. Well, it does remind me of a very similar joke. What do you say to someone if they take your cheese? That's nacho cheese. Yeah. All right. Well, I do have another joke, so I should share that here too. Two churches were near each other on a country road. One day the two ministers were together putting up a sign, and it said, "The end is near. Turn yourself around now before it is too late." A car is driving past, leans out of his window and says, "Leave people alone, you religious crazies. We don't need your stupid lectures." And then from around the next curve, they hear screeching tires and a big splash. Shaking his head, one minister says, "That's the third one this morning." Yeah, the other agrees. And he says, "Maybe we should have the sign say, bridge closed."
That was pretty good.
So, yes, I always appreciate a good pun. That was from my father. He's a punster too.
Yeah.
So when we get together, we're always trading puns back and forth. I'll share one of my dad's puns too. I'd say, "Dad, can I have a Kleenex?" He said, "How about a dirty Y?"
Oh.
Kleenex, dirty Y.
Oh, takes a while. ABCD.
Yeah. My dad was always pleased if he had a joke or a pun that was so bad that
Nobody got it.
no one would respond
Oh, really?
because people didn't want to egg him on. It'd be like, okay, if no one says anything, maybe you won't say another one, kind of thing. But it didn't really matter. So, yeah, I had a couple other things I wanted to share here. This one is from chapter 7. On page 136, it says, "Grace is the natural state of every son of God. When he is not in a state of grace, he is out of his natural environment and does not function well." Well, what are we all doing when we're in our wrong mind? We're not functioning well. Everything he does becomes a strain because he was not created for the environment that he has made. What is he saying here? This world is not our home. Right? And he says that very clearly somewhere else. We all kind of know that. He therefore cannot adapt to it, nor can he adapt it to him. There is no point in trying. A son of God is happy only when he knows he is with God. That is the only environment in which he will not experience strain, because that is where he belongs. It is also the only environment that is worthy of him, because his own worth is beyond anything he can make. So in a way, we're always trying to fit a round peg into a square hole. I'm wondering why it rubs sometimes, why it's not smooth. Why am I struggling with this so much? Well, it's because we mistakenly have bought into the idea that this is our home. There are no bad drivers in heaven, right? There's no one cutting us off up here. There's a lot of things that aren't up here. There's no one who leaves you up here. There's no cause to have tears, to cry because of something. There's no starvation up here. There's no torture. There's no war. There's no violence. There's no death. What we have done when we kind of bought into the tiny mad idea is we made up something that was the opposite of truth. Right? So the opposite of truth. Well, if truth is love, if truth is wholeness, if truth is happiness, if truth is life, what have we made? We've made death. We've made separation. We've made lack. We've made pain. Jesus is really just wanting us to see what we've made and to say, how's that going for you? Do you still want that? And obviously in our right mind, the answer is no. He says it very clearly. Is the choice between miracles and murder hard to make? Well, when you hear it like that, no, I think I know which one I want. But we don't always hear it like that. And that goes back to the fogginess we were talking about before. When we're in a foggy place, it can be hard to see what's so. Now, we had a nice talk last weekend, and one of the other presenters, the course teacher, was talking about an experience where he was driving through the fog. And he said it was so thick he couldn't even really see his hood ornament. And he was like, holy cow, I need some help here. And he asked Jesus to be there with him. And he actually felt the presence on his passenger seat in that moment. And he knew that he wasn't alone. And that's obviously a pretty dramatic example of this inner choice that we're asked to make again and again and again. To say, all right, I'm seeing the fog. I need some help here. And there's a beautiful workbook lesson, as Charlie was mentioning, where he basically talks us through this. We're in the clouds, but we're not so far from the light, right? We just need to remember to keep taking that hand, that he's going to lead us through everything we need to go through. We're going to emerge into the truth of what we've always been. We can't help but do that, right? This is not just a possibility of coming back to our truth. This is what is inevitable for all of us in our experience. Why? Because it's already true.
Never left.
Yeah, we never left. This is all just a scary child fairy tale. I was talking a little bit about the grim fairy tale, right? Well, this fairy tale is pretty grim, right? It has all kinds of scary things. It has this wolf that's trying to knock our house down and eat our grandmother or whatever. All these really sort of hard and painful things. And over again, we're starting to get, okay, do I still want this? And as much as a part of us wants it, we start to get stronger and stronger in our knowing that what we really want is happiness. What we really want is truth. So in a way, he kind of talks about it as sharp-edged children's toys. He uses that phrase in the course. And all of this is like sharp-edged children's toy. It always kind of reminds me of the Saturday Night Live skit. Had Dan Aykroyd in it. You know the one? Yeah. Dan Aykroyd was this sleazy Chicago toy salesman, right? And he's going on this sort of a news show that's trying to kind of like say, all right, should we be doing this? So she's interviewing him, and she's like, now let's start with this toy here, and his name is Johnny Jackknife. You know, when you press this button, the blade comes out of his shoe. Like, do you think this is really a good idea for children? You know? And he's like, yeah, it's fine, it's fine. You know, kids like it. The kids play with the toy.
That
And
was
it
funny. He was like a Ronco salesman. You remember those? You know,
Yeah.
And it just
bag
gets,
of glass.
Yeah,
broken glass.
it gets more absurd,
Kids
right?
love it.
yeah, exactly. That's the punchline at the end was the bag of broken glass, right? And what are we doing? We're playing with this bag of broken glass, and Jesus is like, maybe we shouldn't be playing with this. Maybe you don't want this, because every time you pick it up, it cuts you. Right? What's the thing we do? Well, when we grow up, at some point we let go of our toys, right? We don't need them anymore. They entertained us for a while, but you know, when we're mature, we don't need that. And so we're coming into more and more maturity. These painful toys, they just don't work anymore. And like Jane Curtin, we start to see maybe this isn't such a good idea, right? and the ego Dan Aykroyd is, you know, he just doesn't convince us anymore. No matter how charismatic he is, we know it's just going to lead to suffering. So we're getting the hang of it bit by bit by bit. So, we have a little bit more time. Anything else? Anything else coming up for anyone? I had one other thing I wanted to share, unless you have something you want to jump in with, Charlie.
No, go ahead.
So the other thing that I just wanted to mention is from lesson 182. Lesson 182 is I will be still an instant and go home. I'm just actually going to read a big chunk of this because it's really sweet. So it's really what we were just saying. This world you seem to live in is not home to you. And somewhere in your mind, you know that this is true. A memory of home keeps haunting you, as if there were a place that called you to return, although you do not recognize the voice, nor what it is the voice reminds you of. Yet still you feel an alien here, from somewhere all unknown. Nothing so definite that you could say with certainty you are an exile here. Just a persistent feeling, sometimes not more than a tiny throb, at other times hardly remembered, actively dismissed, but surely to return to mind again. No one but knows whereof we speak. Yet some try to put by their suffering in games they play to occupy their time and keep their sadness from them. Others will deny that they are sad and do not recognize their tears at all. Still others will maintain that what we speak of is illusion, not to be considered more than but a dream. Yet who, in simple honesty, without defensiveness and self-deception, would deny he understands the words we speak? We speak today for everyone who walks this world, for he is not at home. He goes uncertainly about an endless search, seeking in darkness what he cannot find, not recognizing what it is he seeks. 1,000 homes he makes, yet none contents his restless mind. He does not understand he builds in vain. The home he seeks cannot be made by him. There is no substitute for heaven. And I'm just going to jump ahead a little bit. It says, when you are still an instant, when the world recedes from you, when valueless ideas cease to have value in your restless mind, then you will hear his voice. So poignantly he calls to you that you will not resist him longer. In that instant, he will take you to his home, and you will stay with him in perfect stillness, silent and at peace, beyond all words, untouched by fear and doubt, sublimely certain that you are at home. Christ is reborn as but a little child each time a wanderer would leave his home. For he must learn that he would protect what he would protect as but this child, who comes defenseless and who is protected by defenselessness. Go home with him from time to time today. You have not lost your innocence. It is for this you yearn. This is your heart's desire. This is the voice you hear, and this the call which cannot be denied. The Holy Child remains with you. His home is yours. Today he gives you his defenselessness, and you accept it in exchange for all the toys of battle you have made. And now the way is open, and the journey has an end in sight at last. Be still an instant, and go home with him, and be at peace a while. Yeah. So it's always a joy and a pleasure to be with you guys. We enjoy this so much. Our sharing is always from the heart, because that's what we try to do, right?
Yeah, try to live there.
Yeah. So
thank you
we're
all.
definitely going to be back here again. We'll talk with Chris and figure out when we'll be sharing more of this amazing message. In the meanwhile, there are some events that we have. I'm leading a workshop in Boulder. This is August 23rd through the 26th, and it's all about this healing work. It's going to be a lot of time, a lot of space to go into and clear through what doesn't serve anymore, so that we can come into that happiness. I've got a couple of copies of my books over there too, if you're interested. Just come see me afterwards. And again, we appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone,
Yeah.
for being here.
Oh,
Thank
let's
you.
thank them. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
You're welcome.